My name is David Anumudu and I'm a solution architect at Flashpoint. So today we're going to look at vulnerability management. We're going to look at what that actually is, what makes it such a difficult problem, and also how Flashpoint can help. So if we look at the problem of vulnerability management, it's really driven by the fact that software development is focused on delivery of features rather than security. So this graph looks at the number of vulnerabilities that have been issued over the number of years, and we can see that this is growing pretty much year on year. Now, the challenge for organizations dealing with large complex software estates is that even with just 10% of the software packages listed here and with CVEs, that could still result in around 60 vulnerabilities per day, which could potentially be 6 vulnerabilities to research, patch, install, regression test every single working day. The challenge is also that critical systems are the highest priority for patching as they represent the most impact if they have a vulnerability, but conversely they tend to have the smallest maintenance windows and the lowest appetite for being taken offline. So the solution to this is really to have a risk-driven approach to prioritizing vulnerabilities based on a number of key factors, and that's really what we're going to look at today. So one of the things that Flashpoint does to help organizations understand and quantify this risk is the provision of finished intelligence reports. So these are written by our in-house research team at Flashpoint. They include flash reports for urgent issues that need immediate attention from security teams. And in this particular case, we're looking at the now infamous struts vulnerability. You can see the report is designed to be in a format that can be consumed quickly and easily, no extraneous information. And there's sections here which highlight that in this particular case, our strong recommendation is that this vulnerability should be patched or remediated in some other way. You can also see here you're able to search through the Flashpoint platform looking for reports based on topics, and what we're doing is providing here a list of all of our finished intelligence reports that refer to vulnerabilities. So one of the key metrics around vulnerabilities is the CVSS score, or the Common Vulnerability Scoring System. And this is made up of a number of different components. The base score, as you can see on the left-hand side, shows a number of different metrics: base, impact, and exploitability. What we're particularly interested in, though, is this second area of scoring, this temporal scoring, as well as the environmental scoring. And if we drill down into a little bit more detail, temporal, I'd say, is really where it gets interesting. So what this does, it looks at qualities of a vulnerability that change over time. So are there fixes available? That's represented by the remediation level. What is the known credibility of the reporting? That's the report confidence level. And then we have the exploitability metric, and that's all about whether or not either a proof of concept or maybe a functional exploit exists, and that weights the score accordingly. These metrics enable the score, therefore, to be modified based on threat actor activity, and we'll look at that in a few moments' time. But if we look at how the CVSS scores are calculated, you can probably see that there's a problem here. If we drill into this calculation, we can see that there's a weighting that's applied to the base score, and that either leaves it unchanged or actually in some cases reduces it. So what we can see here is that with an exploitability value of proof of concept, for example, then that rather conversely reduces the overall vulnerability score for a particular CVE by 10%. Another challenge is that NIST themselves don't provide any kind of temporal scoring. They provide the calculator so you can do those kind of calculations for yourself, but there's not a way of having that done automatically. If you're involved in doing any kind of financial processing, credit card processing, then you'll be aware of the Pci Guidance, and that illustrates how a scan of infrastructure that has vulnerabilities that are involved in payment processing, if those vulnerabilities are of a score that is in the medium to high severity, so you can see from this table that would result in a fail. So we know now that we've got this CVSS scoring metric that gives us a way of going through and prioritizing vulnerabilities, and that should theoretically help in terms of our overall vulnerability management program. The challenge though is that if we just consider what we saw with the PCI scale, then what we now have is that vulnerabilities of a score of 8 or above, then we should pretty much fix those straight away. If we've got vulnerabilities with a score of 4 or below, then we can file those. We can register the risk and deprioritize those from our vulnerability management program. The real issue though is that the vast majority of vulnerabilities have a CVSS score that is far too high to simply register the risk and file, but not severe enough to unilaterally decide that you're going to patch that vulnerability. And that is represented by this diagram, which shows by the size of the circles on the diagram exactly where the distribution is of the CVSS scores. So you can see there's the majority of those scores fit into this middle ground. So to try and make sense of this, what we've done at Flashpoint is we've taken that vulnerability data. We've also taken exposure and exploits data, and that's what you see in the yellow circle on the left-hand side. Now, what you're able to do is bring in your asset management data. So that's probably going to have been built automatically from some form of configuration management tool. And you can subset that even further by taking vulnerability scan data from tools such as Nessus and Qualys, which will give you a list of CVEs that are unpatched within your environment, but then need to be prioritized in some way. And that is really where the value proposition around the Flashpoint data comes into play, because what we're able to do is to take threat actor conversations that we have collected from various illicit communities such as deep and dark web forums, encrypted chat platforms, various paste sites and threat actor blogs, and we're able to overlay that data with the vulnerability scan data that you've derived from your environment. So you can now see that it's given you a subset of your overall vulnerabilities that you can prioritize and give to your vulnerability management team as the areas that they should focus on with the most intensity. We also provide a range of visualization tools that allow you to drill down into this data in more detail, as well as being able to search directly across our database, looking for either vulnerabilities by name or by their CVE or a wide range of other types of metadata. When we actually look at a particular CVE in the platform, then again you can see not only the traditional data from MITRE, but you can also see threat actor chatter that we've picked up from these various illicit communities. And that's really what's giving you this additional context that you're able to overlay across the traditional CVE data. And then finally, we can see links to various patches. So again, managing the vulnerability for your vulnerability management team is significantly eased by the fact that all of this data is in a single location. So another thing you might be considering is, can I apply more security analyst minds to try and work a particular problem? It may be that you've identified a vulnerability within your estate that is being mentioned by threat actors. It's gaining traction amongst the threat actor community, but you're concerned about maybe the risks of applying a patch. It's in a critical system. So you want to really gain some additional expertise, some additional context from other users in a community that may have faced a similar problem. And we have an environment called FP Collab that provides exactly that. So FP Collab is a closed community of Flashpoint users. It spans multiple industry verticals and geographies, and it's primarily a trust network that gives a channel for collaboration and timely intelligence. And these conversations, these interactions can be used to inform effective decision making around risk. So one of the things that we're able to do here is illustrate how that worked in a practical example. So we can see back when this particular vulnerability was prevalent, then there was this particular timeline around this equation editor vulnerability in Microsoft Office, and it's in a really old part of the Office suite. You can see there by the file date, it's 20 years old. What happened was that by being able to run a search in our platform, then you're able to identify chatter around that particular vulnerability. And you can see around 2017, obviously there was a significant amount of activity around that particular CVE being released by Microsoft. You can see here some of the conversations amongst the threat actors. Using our inbuilt translation, we're seeing the that conversation being translated from Russian into English. And one of the things that the collaboration group at Flashpoint was really valuable in was allowing our customers to communicate and work out how they were going to mitigate the risk of this particular CVE. And we could see a FP Collab user reaching out to the community and asking how to actually get around this particular vulnerability. And within a quarter of an hour, there was some actionable intel. Another member of the FP Collab community reached out to that individual on the FP Collab list and talked about utilizing a policy editor to essentially disable that executable, given that it was, as we mentioned earlier on, a legacy executable around equation editing. It wasn't something that was going to have major impact by switching that off for that user community. So it really illustrates how utilizing the various aspects of the Flashpoint solution, you're able to have that real 360-degree view of risk. So if we summarize the timeline, we can see that many security vendors only really started talking about this issue 2 weeks after we identified threat actor conversations around that particular vulnerability. So let's now talk about how we can use this data from the Flashpoint platform. So option one we've talked about, which is primarily using the Flashpoint intelligence platform as a single view consisting of a range of different elements around that data. So threat actor conversations, potential exploits, finished intelligence around that particular vulnerability, etc. It may also be though that you want to entirely automate the process, and that's really what we're looking at here, using scripts that you're able to download from GitHub. Then what you're able to do is take data from these vulnerability scanning environments and push that data directly into the Flashpoint platform. So you now have an entirely customized dashboard that's telling you everything you need to know about that particular vulnerability and how you should prioritize that in your environment. So in summary, what we've seen is that the way vulnerabilities are organized, the way vulnerabilities are prioritized using traditional mechanisms such as CVSS scores, results in a high volume that is difficult to triage because of the lack of variation in the CVSS scores. They all tend to be at a level that are too important to simply document, but not necessarily important enough to risk taking critical infrastructure offline to apply patches. What we're able to do with the Flashpoint solution though is to give you this additional insight into threat actor conversations so you can determine where you should be prioritizing your vulnerability management efforts, focusing on the vulnerabilities that have got the most interest from the threat actor community, because they are clearly going to be the ones that are going to have a significant impact and a significant amount of threat actor resources being thrown at them. So to summarize, Flashpoint augments your vulnerability management program using finished intelligence, so flash reports giving you that insight into the current breaking vulnerabilities, news around those, best practices, mitigations, etc. You get detailed analysis reporting where we'll drill down into the technical information around specific vulnerabilities so you can get an understanding as to what part of your environment is being targeted potentially by threat actors if they're able to exploit that vulnerability. By integrating with threat actor communications, we're providing you with safe access to the conversations that threat actors are having so you can see exactly where they're focusing their efforts. You can get real-time graphing that shows you exactly where the current interest is amongst threat actors across different vulnerabilities, different parts of your IT estate. And we've got the real-time translation, so if there are communications taking place among threat actors that are impacting parts of your infrastructure, then you can use that capability to understand and gain more context around those conversations. And then the final part is really that our vulnerability analytics helps understand the intersection between threat actor conversations and your IT estate. My name is David Anumudu and I'm a solution architect at Flashpoint. So today we're going to look at vulnerability. So just to finish off and provide some additional context, then this is a study from the University of Trento, and one of the things that was interesting in this analysis that they performed was that using CVSS scores in isolation wasn't that much better than basically randomly picking CVEs and using that as a mechanism to apply vulnerability management to. So it really illustrates how there's additional context is really important to make sure that you're applying your resources in the way that makes the most sense. And the final comment is really from the NCSC, and what this really describes is that in any organization dealing with vulnerabilities, there are going to be more vulnerabilities than it's possible to actually triage and to apply patches to. So you need to have a process in place. And this is really coming all the way full circle and describing how this is primarily a business risk problem rather than just an IT problem in isolation. Thank you very much for your time today. I hope this has been useful.